Hello, this is Sarah
And this is Jeremy.
from the Caregiver Chronicles, and we're here with our friend Fred Marvel from the Spectrum Dad.
How you guys doing?
We're doing good. How are you, Fred?
I'm good. Can't complain.
Good. So, Fred has a podcast, the Spectrum Dad, and we really enjoy listening to it.
Oh yeah, I just finished the most recent episode today on my drive over to work, actually.
Awesome. I'm glad you guys like it.
We really do, and it's really unique hearing a dad's perspective because, you don't hear too many dads share their stories or be open.
At least not publicly.
Yeah, well, I know, like, when Jeremy and I were growing up, like, dads weren't supposed to have feelings. And, we all know that that's not true, but, I think it's great. I just think it's really important for dads to talk about their experiences, especially with autism, because it affects so many families.
Mm-hmm.
So, Fred, do you want to tell us about your story, you and your son Alex?
Yeah, sure. I'll give you guys the Cliff Notes version because it can be pretty long. When Alex was 4 months old, he had no issues at all. Like, perfect birth. Everything was going fine. My wife went to check on him at the babysitter's one day and noticed he wasn't acting like himself. He seemed a little lethargic and out of it. So she took him to the pediatrician, and then the pediatrician sent him directly to Children's Hospital here in Philadelphia. And so she called me on her way there. She's like, "You got to meet me at the hospital." And, my first thought was like, he's sick. He's got the flu. And I didn't get my flu shot yet. So, she's going to give it to me. Because, our little guy's got the flu, and I didn't get a flu shot yet. So we get there, not suspecting anything was up other than, him being sick. And they take him back into one of the emergency rooms in the exam area. And the doctor looked at both of us and said, "Somebody's been abusing this baby." And our jaws hit the floor. We're looking at each other like, what are you talking about? Because for the first 4 months, it's only been 4 months, but Alex had been hitting every milestone. So we had no reason to suspect anything was going on. He never had any kind of marks or bruising or anything like that. So we were pretty shocked, to say the least. And then because they called it shaken baby syndrome, and because we had no idea what was going on, and we were both telling the doctors, well, it wasn't us, the hospital put us on visitation restrictions. So we were not allowed in the room by ourselves, unsupervised, with Alex. We had to have like a nurse or a doctor or a family member with us just to keep an eye on us, because if you think about it from their perspective, we're bringing a little baby into the hospital with signs of abuse and no story to go along with it. So after a couple days in the hospital, the babysitter leaves. I can't even remember which one of us a message saying that Alex was dropped during a feeding, and that's what happened. So take your word for it. I don't think we'll ever get a concrete this is exactly what happened. But anyway, that was good enough for the hospital. So Alex was in the hospital for a week and came home. He had bleeding on his brain, retinal hemorrhages, a concussion. But so about a month later, the swelling from the brain bleeding got to be too much. So we had to take him back to the hospital, actually, where he had an operation to have a shunt placed in his brain. And what that does, that drains all of that excess fluid from your brain down into your stomach. And then I guess you just digest it out because there was too much fluid. It was building up and it was just causing too much pressure. I'm sure it gives you a nice headache. He was only 5 months old, so he couldn't really, really tell us. What happened was they told us what to look for, right? I even believe we had shunt surgery scheduled at one point, but he had just a rough night's sleep one night. And, my wife and I both were just like, oh, something's up here. Like, we need to take him back to the hospital. So that's what we did. So he's in the hospital for another week recovering from surgery. And then immediately we start with physical therapy and occupational therapy. And through the grace of God, he makes a miraculous recovery with no lasting brain damage, no no lasting effects whatsoever. So fast forward, he's 3 years old. He gets cleared by every specialist he's been seeing. Like, okay, let's put him in daycare. Let's get him around some kids his own age and start to get him to be a little more social. But daycare he had a rough time there. That's when we started to notice a lot of his different symptoms. He would be aggressive towards his teachers. He would run away. He would try and run out of the school, things like that. So the daycare owner was super helpful. She's like, yeah, we can't help him here, but here are the people you need to talk to get him evaluated. And that's what we did. We waited forever for that neuropsych evaluation, and they diagnosed him with ADHD and sensory processing disorder. And at the time, they also said he had autistic symptoms, but not enough to put him on the spectrum at that time. He was like 3 or 4 years old, and he's 11 now, so it's almost a decade ago. So back to another more occupational therapy. We were taking him into Children's Hospital. We had OTs coming out to our house to work with him, and we found an all-inclusive school that would have him and other kids like him in the class with neurotypical kids. He could also they had an OT room at school, so he could go there. We had a one-on-one aide for him, to make sure he wasn't trying to attack his teachers or run away from school and things like that. And he did great. So then we enrolled him. He's in a mainstream school now. He's been in the same school since kindergarten. In 3rd grade, we ran into some trouble again with just different, he was having a hard time adjusting, getting older, like a lot less free time and play time and rest time. And now it's like, I gotta study, I have homework, I have to pay attention all day. So that's when we started thinking about maybe there's something else going on here. To be honest, I had no idea. I didn't have too much of a clue about autism or anything like that. I was listening to a podcast, because I like podcasts, about a family with a son who was a little bit younger than Alex. Their son has ADHD and sensory processing disorder, and he was also diagnosed with autism. And they're describing their kid, and I'm thinking like, no, they're describing Alex. Like, it's the same symptoms, same quirks, same behavior, same everything. So Alex was seeing a behavior therapist, and I called her up. I said, tell me if you think I'm off base here, but do you think he could be on the autism spectrum? And she says, you know what? I was actually just sitting here thinking of a way to approach you and your wife about the subject. So, he is 11 now, and he just started 5th grade, and he was just diagnosed with autism over the summer.
Yeah. During all this, that must have been something.
Yeah, that was a pain in the butt, because we went through the ADOS testing, and in March they interviewed my wife and I, and we had Alex's observations scheduled for the end of March, but mid-March the whole country shut down, and so we were in a holding pattern. And we live in Philadelphia, and late spring, early summer, like May, June-ish, things start to open back up a little bit. So I started calling and can we get this finished? Can we get this scheduled? because I'm working from home, and if they said, he needs whatever therapies, then I'm home to, help out and get that started. But at the time, they're like, oh, we're still not open for in-person visitation yet. Everything's still telehealth over the computer. And you can't really observe anybody like that. So, we're waiting some more. But, it's like, enough's enough. Like, come on, like, he's been going to the same facility for different therapies and different services since he was 3. So he's been there for 8 years. Like, you guys have plenty of information. Isn't there something you can do? So they finally agreed to diagnose him based on everything they already had. And then, they're still not open for, like, people come out to our house, but we can't go to their building for any type of services. So I guess we'll finish that second part of the ADOS testing at some point. Who knows? But right now where we're at, we just started ABA therapy, and we're working on getting some OT.
Yep. We found actually where we are right now, they're not doing in-home services, but there are outpatient services. So we are taking our son to the speech PT and OT.
Speech PT.
But we have no in-home ABA right now.
Okay.
He's gone months without it. Did video, just once a week video. And a lot of the videos he won't sit through. So a lot of times it's me just keeping them updated.
Right.
Which I know that they're doing the best they can. It's frustrating. And we were even told we were one of the last houses that ABA will be coming into because I work in healthcare, and I'm just such a high risk for them.
Right. Yeah, I know.
Which is even more frustrating when my kid really needs this help. So we completely empathize with what you're going through. We've been through the ringer.
Oh yeah.
With all that.
But here's the thing I told them, like, of course you understand the shutdown and everything like that, but when I was talking to them in the summertime, this is 3 or 4 months into everything, and my whole thing was like, how can you just say, okay, you're just gonna have to wait? Like, that part of it blew my mind, like that these kids are just being, unless you do it over the computer, you don't get anything. Like, how does OT and PT work over the computer? Like, I just don't understand. I never understood that. So that was a lot of angry phone calls. Like, I understand that you had to shut down, but it's been 3 or 4 months now. If plan A didn't work, like, we need to come up with plan B.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just say, oh, plan A didn't work. Okay, see you later.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, that just reminded me, while we were going on, we got the extra speech, we got the extra OT and the PT, and when we even got it approved, they're like, we don't know how much longer we're going to be open.
Yeah.
And then our speech therapist at one point, she's like, well, I can only see him on these days because they cut her hours down. It's like, I'm open 5 days a week. It's like at the height of it, she was open, only open 3 days. So it greatly narrowed it down. But it said where she worked was like, we know people still need this. We're going to do our best to be open.
Right.
Even if it's, we're open Monday and we close Tuesday for cleaning and then we're open Wednesday like that.
Yeah.
Says it's better than being shut down the entire time.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. It was tough though. And there were a lot of times we had to pull him out we had to pull him out when I was sick. We had to pull him out when he had a runny nose. Right. So we had a lot of scary experiences with having to pull him in and out of services too. Right. Me being sick, he lost a month of everything.
Okay.
So we couldn't take him anywhere because I had contracted COVID, and I was isolated. We can't take him anywhere, so we can't put other people at risk.
Absolutely.
As much as our child needs this, we can't put other people at risk
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
the risk versus the reward. You got exactly, and so it's like really, it's just a crazy thing, and like, you know, from one state to another, from one town to another, the rules are so different, and it's so frustrating.
Right. They're so different normally, because I hear all the time in normal situations where, say, you know, Pennsylvania has better services than, you know, wherever, Ohio or whatever, you know, things like that. So it's so different to begin with, and then you add on a pandemic on top of it, and you know, this state can open up, but this one can't, and this city can open up, but this one can't. You know,
that's exactly been our struggle too, I think. But even in the beginning with Joey, in Connecticut, the rule is at 3 ABA stops, or birth to 3 program stops, and the child goes to school, unless the insurance covers more ABA, and we had to fight to get that.
It was a long battle, because we had them on state insurance because it covered everything we needed, but you know, there are 4 tiers to our state's insurance program. 3 of them will cover ABA therapy past the age of 3. Guess which one we qualified for? So I had to go through my work, which, you know, we live right on the Connecticut-Rhode Island line. We live in Connecticut, but both work in Rhode Island. So we have to go through both states on that.
Wow.
But that's a good thing now that we have insurance through your work, because it opens up more options too with doctors and things like that. We can actually see doctors in Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Massachusetts for him. Yeah. So that kind of helps us. We're right on the line of all 3. Well, we're in Connecticut, but we're right on the Massachusetts and Rhode Island border.
Yeah.
So that's really good for us.
If it's something that requires going, you know, we live in a small town. If something requires going to a big city, it's like, okay, you could either go to Hartford, Providence, or Boston. So,
yeah.
So it opens up options, whereas the state insurance had to be in Hartford.
Yeah,
I know. It's so like I had a phone call with them today. I called the insurance company trying to find an occupational therapist that will work with them, and the first 2 numbers, the first 2 practices they gave me, one was a general surgeon and the other was an urgent care clinic. So it's like, you know, neither of those are even occupational therapists. You know, oh geez, it's so frustrating.
Yeah, we've had that fight with ABA too, with the insurance.
Yeah.
They were trying to tell us that we had ABA closer to our house, and at the time the only one we had was the one that was coming in, and they were like, well, you know, we only work with these companies. And I'm like, okay, but all of those companies are an hour and a half away.
Right.
Like, I'm like, you gotta do something better. Like, you know, I can't drive an hour and a half away every day. Like, I don't know. That might be the Rhode Island in me too. If it's a ride over 40 minutes, I'm packing a snack, we're staying for the day, I'm planning my bathroom breaks.
Yeah.
And well, to be fair, while yes, the Rhode Island in her makes the, you know, what is an average trip for everyone else in the country seem long, and driving in, you know, we have services 5 days a week right now. Driving an hour and a half to those services each day would get incredibly taxing.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I would side on the Rhode Island side of you for that you know, especially since there are places in our town, in each of the next towns around us closer. It's like, why not work with them? And they eventually did once we got on the insurance through my work. They're just like, oh, hey, this opens up pretty much everywhere.
But it was a battle, and we even had to prove that Joey had autism. That was a good conversation. The insurance agent was like, can you prove your son has autism? And I'm like, would you like to spend a day with him, sir? Like,
how do you exactly like what do you do?
I'm like, no, I'm just making it up so I can pay tons of money. Like, come on, right. No. Like,
because we have so much disposable income, we just want to give it away.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know.
Oh, it's frustrating.
But no, therapies are expensive, and even with insurance. But you know, it's just like, who would I don't know. I can't imagine anybody asking for this. Like
Right.
I love my kids more than anything in the world. They're the greatest. They're just the, but there are days where like I look around and I'm like, this is not what I thought it was going to be like at all.
Right.
Like, it's like everything's on fire and all right, not really, but
Oh, I know.
you look around and you just feel like, what the hell is going on?
Exactly.
When did life become a dumpster fire,
You have to change your mindset just a little bit.
March 13th, 2020. I answered your question. Sorry.
Is that the day they canceled school? I just remember.
I don't know. I'm pretty close though.
I just remember, Thursday, Remy coming home from school. We're waiting on it at this point. New York is shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I called it.
Yeah, and Boston is shut down, and we're just waiting. And then it's 9:00. I work overnight, so I'm trying to sleep because I have to get up at midnight. And I get a phone call, and as soon as I see that number, I'm like, I know what this is. And they're like, yep, we are shutting down for the next 2 weeks. And
yeah.
I called it though. Even with the ABA therapist here, as soon as they said they were closing schools, I looked at them and I said, so 1 or 2 weeks till you guys are out of here. And they're looking at me, they're like, no, we're not closing. I'm like, yeah, no. And
it was 3 days later.
Yeah, it was 3 days
3
later.
days, you didn't even make it a week.
They're like, this is our last day.
Well, I mean, we got they closed the schools Thursday night, so 3 days since they don't do weekends was Tuesday, so almost a week in that sense. Yeah, 5 days total, 3 working days.
Yeah, we knew it was coming. I was ready, or as ready as I could have been, I guess, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. We were prepared for. It's one thing. We were prepared for everything, and it was so much worse than we could have ever prepared for. That's kind of been our experience.
That's our life story.
No,
especially this
honestly, like I feel bad. Because we've been okay. We've all things considered, with 2 kids in school and then a 3-year-old running around the house, and knock on wood, we've been okay. So I can't complain too much. It's actually helped how Alex and our middle guy Daniel, who's 7, get along and interact with each other. So it's been like a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm glad that you guys are doing well. I hope you and your family do stay safe.
Yeah.
I did have a question, because one of my favorite episodes I listened to of your podcast was when you took the kids to Hershey Park. I love that episode just because I could relate to it so much, just from when we went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame with our boys. Yeah. And it's like, how I just am curious, because I don't know how we do it. How do you do it like that? Because it's about making it fun for the kids,
right?
That's the only way.
I think that's one of the things I said is, as long as they have fun, that's what I'm there for. If I, Alex is 11 and he's 5'3", so he's plenty tall enough to get on all of the roller coasters and everything there. And there's nothing I would love more than to just ride roller coasters all day. But he's not cool with that. He gets a little nervous and he doesn't want to. So we went on the rides that he was comfortable with and he loved. We spent most of the time in the water park because he absolutely loves swimming in the water and everything like that. And I think we've only got like 5 or 6 rides of, on the in the dry area. So, but he had fun. So, and that's, and that's all that mattered. If I want to go back and do the roller coasters, then I'll get a babysitter and leave him at home and go with just my wife or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. No, it is about the kids.
Yeah.
And I just think it's important to take, when you have a child on the spectrum, to expose them to as much as possible.
Yeah. Absolutely.
To get them out and you know, unfortunately, they're going to have a bad time sometimes, and there's going to be judgment. There's going to be people looking at you. Why do you have your kid on a leash?
Right.
Like,
Oh, I
Joey,
know.
we have him on a leash.
That was us having a meltdown because, of course, you can't leave the park. He did great. I was so proud of him. He's like, you know, Dad, I'm ready to go. Like, perfect reliever.
Yeah.
Everybody had enough, you know, but you can't leave without walking through the gift shop. And, you know, in hindsight, he wanted these little squishy figurines that were like $20. And in hindsight, they would have been good. Because he loves those kind of like stress toys. They would have been good for him. But like, just you know, we spent enough money all day as it is, and you know, we heard. I heard plenty of, and oh my God, and whispers, and because. You know, he had a meltdown when I said no in the middle of the gift shop at Hershey Park with probably 100 or so people looking at us.
Yeah.
But, you know, I mean, we started doing that when he was young, when he would run away. And, you know, we came to the decision, like, we can't just sit in our house. Like, you know, he's a kid. Kids need to go to museums and the zoo and everything else. Like, you know, there's got to be a way. Like, we got to be able to figure it out. And I remember one trip to the zoo, because, man, we had memberships to all these places. We would try it. You know, we're there Saturday morning. We have to leave. He has a meltdown. All right, we're going to come back Sunday and try something, you know, try a different approach, try a different strategy. One day, he's a little bit older, and we're walking towards the tiger exhibit at the zoo. And we could never figure out why he would run away until finally he said, Dad, you know, there's too many people in there. Let's go somewhere else. And then that light bulb went off. Like, oh, he gets overwhelmed by crowds and things like that. You know? Yeah. So then it's like, all right, well, how can we work around that? All right, well, let's go as soon as these places open. Let's try and get there early. And then, you know, like, stuff like that. Let's work on it.
Yeah. Well, I know a lot of places around here do have sensory-friendly days.
They do.
Yes.
I don't know where you guys are, but probably it's pretty popular.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And we do try to take Joey once in a while when there's a sensory-friendly day. Right. But we just, again, just getting them out there and ignoring the dirty looks which is sometimes really hard because, you know, the meltdown when you're having, you know, when your kid's having their worst moment and they're most vulnerable and there's only so much you can do to help them, and then you're getting looked at like you're the worst parent in the world. It's so hard to ignore that. It's like just twist the knife.
Yeah.
But I think the best thing we can do as parents with kids on the spectrum is get our kids out there.
Yeah.
And I think I said that so many times in my podcast that exposure and awareness is just so important.
Yeah, that reminded me the time we were visiting my parents in the middle of the country. So we drove to, you know, they live in Missouri, so we drove to St. Louis for the day, and we went up into the Gateway Arch, and it was a beautiful scene, and Joey was fine at first, but after a while, you know, even though there's not a lot of people in there because it's not a big area, because they're cramped, it was becoming too much, and you know, I had to take him back down the little elevator, or it's not a traditional elevator, whatever's in the arch there.
Yeah.
And the looks I was getting from some people, and it's like, well, you know, it's like I was the worst parent in the world. At the same time, other parents, I think, or other people, I don't know if they were sympathetic because they understand it could be rough for the kids, or they saw the medical bracelet on his arm or whatever. But, you know, half the people give me the worst looks in the world, and the other half are going out of their way to be accommodating.
Yeah, I know.
And that's everywhere too. You know, we just have to get our kids out there more.
Yeah.
Get everybody else used to them, and it'll be okay.
Yeah, and in the moment, like, I'm not even. You kind of hear it in passing, but you know, I'm just focused on the kids and, you know, what do they need, and you know, everybody else can, you know, go.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So, Fred, I have one more question for you.
Yeah, what is that?
Do you have any good dad jokes for us?
Oh, God, let me think of one off the top of my head. Why is 6 afraid of 7?
Why?
Because 7, 8, 9.
Okay, I got one for you. Fred, have you ever bowled a 301?
No.
Well, it's kind of hard to bowl a 300 and lose.
Oh God, these are brutal.
Yes, they are.
You know, my kids love them.
Well, thank you very much for coming on our show, Fred. It was a pleasure, and
you guys are great. Thank you.
We would love to collaborate again soon.
Oh, absolutely. Whenever you want.
You let us know, and we'll work around it. We'll figure something out.
All right, cool.
But thank you so much.
You got it.
Fred, do you want to tell our listeners real quick where they can find you?
Yeah, Spectrum Dad Pod on all the, I guess most of the podcasting platforms. I'm on Instagram at the Spectrum Dad Pod. So, feel free to shoot me a message with any questions or anything, anything you guys can think of.
All right, sounds good.
All right, we will do. And again, to our listeners, like and follow the Spectrum Dad on Instagram and check out his podcast. It's great. You'll love it. You'll laugh. He does a great job. He has some really great interviews and some really good knowledge. I've learned a lot listening to your podcast.
No, thank you. I appreciate it. You guys are doing awesome too.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
See you.
All right. You too. Thank you.
And that'll do it for this week's episode. See you guys next week.